Hello, today I'm going to show you how to crochet Percy the Christmas bear. Twinkling with the joy of the season, this cuddly bear of lights and laughter is your guide to a winter wonderland of whimsy. Percy can be made in sport, DK, or plush weight yarn by adjusting your hook size. For today's tutorial, I'm going to be crocheting him with worsted weight yarn and a 4mm crochet hook. If you haven't already, be sure to snag the matching greeting card to make an adorable and one-of-a-kind gift that your friends and family will love. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so we're getting started on Percy the Christmas bear's head and body, and we're going to be working with this white colored yarn. And the first thing that we need to do is get a magic ring formed. So let's do a quick review on how to get one of those tied and how to make our first few single crochet stitches inside. Alright, so let's review how to form a magic ring. So we're going to start by taking a little length of our yarn, and I'm using white for this demonstration. Make sure you're using the correct color for the pattern that you are following along with. So I'm going to take this white, and I'm going to reserve myself a little bit of a tail. So I'm going to take the end of that yarn, and I'm going to stretch it so I've got about 5 inches or so of a tail. And the tail is going to be the end that is not attached to our ball of yarn. So once we've got about 5 inches or so reserved of that tail, we're going to take our yarn hand. For me, that's my left hand, but if you're a left-handed crocheter, this might be your right hand. But we're going to take our yarn hand and make a bit of a finger guns here. So my index and my middle finger, I'm going to put them together, and I'm going to be looking at the inside of them. Then I'm going to take that tail that I've reserved, that 5 inches, and I'm going to lay it so that it's over the lower digit on my index and my middle. And then I'll take my thumb and I'm going to press the yarn to those 2 fingers. Then I'm going to take my hook hand, which is for me my right hand, but could be your left hand, and I'm going to grab the working yarn. Once I've got that grabbed, I'll take it and I'm going to wrap it around the back side of my index and my middle finger so that it's sort of close to that top digit. I'll flip my hand over so you can see. So I want it to be close to my top digit, so you can see it's closer to the 2 tops of my fingers here. So we're going to wrap that around, and then once we've got it around the top digit of those 2 fingers, we're going to bring it so that it goes behind our thumb again. So I use my thumb and I pinch that second wrap in place. Then we're going to keep wrapping, this time going around the lower digit on our 2 fingers. So I'll flip my hand over so you can see these 2 wraps here. This is that one I just made, going around that lower digit. So we'll wrap around that lower digit, and then we're going to take our working yarn and one more time snug it behind our thumb, and then just pull it out of our way. So once we've done that, we should have 2 wraps and this sort of X shape on the insides of our hands. So once we have all of the yarn wrapped around our yarn hand here, we're ready to take our crochet hook in our hook hand, and we're going to flip our yarn hand over so that we're looking at the back side of our fingers. So we should have 2 wraps, one around the top digit, one around the lower digit on our yarn hand. We're going to take our hook and slip it underneath that top wrap, and then use the hook part to snag that lower wrap and bring it underneath the top wrap. Then we're going to take both of our hands and we're going to flip them over so that we're looking at the inside and away from our body. So I'm flipping out and away from my body. And then I'm going to bring my 2 hands together, so my yarn hand and my hook hand. I'm going to bring them so the index finger here on my hook hand can touch the back side of my yarn hand. Then using the thumb and index finger of my hook hand, I'm going to grab both the wrap on my hook and the wrap still on my fingers right where they meet. So I'm going to kind of snag the 2 of them together right there. Once I've got those pinched between my thumb and index finger on my hook hand, I can let go with my thumb and then gently slide those wraps off of my index and middle finger. So now that I've done that, let's locate both the tail, that's the end that's no longer attached to our ball of yarn, so it's got this blunt cut end on it. And we're going to kind of pull that over into the 12 o'clock position, so kind of up and away. And then let's locate the working yarn. That's the stuff still attached to our ball of yarn. So once we've got those two identified, we're going to take the working yarn and begin tensioning it. So to do that, we'll take our index finger on our yarn hand. That for me is my left hand. Could be your right hand for you if you're a left-handed crocheter. And we're going to slip the working yarn over the top of our index finger. Then we'll take our middle, ring, and pinky finger on our yarn hand, and we're going to wrap those around that working yarn. Once you've done that, we also need to sandwich this working yarn in between our magic ring and our tail. So to do that, I like to take my middle finger and thumb on my yarn hand, and I'm going to grab that tail with my middle finger here. And then with my thumb, I want to grab the ring. So we don't want to grab our working yarn, which is kind of going in through that ring. We want to just get the bottom end of the ring here. And once you've got those two, we're going to kind of pinch them together. And you can see that sandwiches our working yarn in between the two of them. Once we've got those grabbed with our yarn hand, we can let go with our index and thumb on our hook hand. And the ring here that's on our hook is really loose. We'll tighten that by pulling our index finger up and away. You can see how that tightens that yarn. And then once we've done that, we're ready to yarn over and draw through the loop on our hook. So we'll take our hook, put the yarn over our hook. So I kind of just swing around the back side there and grab it. And we're going to pull that working yarn directly through the loop on our hook. Once we've done that, you can let go. It's not going to come undone. It won't come untied, which is very comforting because we've spent all this time creating it. The last thing we need to do before we're ready to begin is we're going to take the tail, and you can see it's threaded through our magic ring. We're going to take that tail and we're going to pull it out from the center of that ring. And from here, we're ready to begin working in the magic ring. We also need to work over the tail as well. So we'll take that ring and we'll take the tail and we're going to set them together so that we are working over both of these strands, the ring and the tail. All right, you are ready to go ahead and continue on in your pattern. Alright, so now that we have reviewed how to tie our magic ring, we're ready to go ahead and start in on round 1. So round 1, we need to put 8 single crochet stitches inside of this magic ring, which will give us a total of 8 stitches for this round. So to start, we're going to be putting our first single crochet stitch, and all of our single crochet stitches, inside of this ring, and over the tail that we used to form the ring as well. So we're going to go ahead and take our crochet hook, and go through the ring and underneath that tail that we used to make the ring. Then yarn under, so we're going to put the yarn underneath our hook. So I'm swinging my hook over the top of my yarn here. And then using that hook, I'm going to draw it through the ring and up to a nice tall loop here on my crochet hook. Then to finish off my single crochet stitch, I'm going to go yarn over. So I'm going to put the yarn over my hook, kind of swing my hook around the back side of it here, and then use the hook to pull that through those 2 loops on my crochet hook. I also like to tighten this first stitch by grabbing the stitch itself and sort of scooting it over to the right on my magic ring. And when we're working in the round, we need to mark the first stitch of the round. So I'll take my stitch marker and I'm going to slip it underneath both of the legs of that V of the stitch and lock it in place. And I'm going to continue adding single crochet stitches in that same way into this ring until I have 8 total. So I'm going to go through the ring and under the tail, yarn under, and draw up a loop, then yarn over and draw through both loops. That makes my second stitch. There's my third. 5th. Alright, so I have all 8 of my single crochet stitches, and you can double check the amount by kind of turning your work on the side and counting these little V shapes. And we don't count the loop on our hook as a stitch. But once we have all 8, we can pull the tail of our magic ring, which closes off that first round into a circle and sets us up for round 2. So round 2, we're going to be increasing in each stitch that we created in round 1. So to do an increase, we're going to place 2 single crochet stitches in 1 stitch from the previous round. So our first stitch is marked for us, so we're going to be putting our hook through where our stitch marker is currently. So we need to take that marker out, and then we're going to take our crochet hook and pass it underneath the little legs of that stitch. So from front to back, we'll push our hook through. And then from here, the single crochet stitch is made the same way it's made in our magic ring. We'll yarn under and draw our working yarn through the fabric of our work and up into a nice tall loop. Then yarn over and draw through both loops to make our first part of our increase, which we need to mark. And then to finish that increase, we need to go back through the same stitch from round 1, the one that we just put our first stitch in. So we're going to push back through that same stitch and make a second single crochet stitch from the first stitch of round 1. So you can see this hole here, which is the stitch from round 1, has 2 V's, 2 stitches coming out of it. And then we need to continue increasing in each of the stitches for this round, which will give us 16 total at the end. So we're going to go through the next stitch from round 1, this one right here, and make 2 single crochet stitches inside. So there's my second increase. And I'm just going to continue adding 2 single crochet stitches to every 1 stitch from round 1 until I reach my stitch marker. Alright, that takes me all the way around round 2 and gives me 16 stitches total. Before I move on to round 3, I'm going to flip my work over and I'm going to pull my magic ring tail tightly one last time. And then I'm going to give this tail a trim, not all the way off, just short. So I'm going to trim it short and discard any extra that I cut off. And that will keep the tail out of our way as we continue working around. Alright, so round 3, we've got a set of parentheses, and what that means is we need to repeat everything inside of them in the order that it appears from left to right, the amount of times indicated on the outside of the parentheses. And that will give us the amount of stitches that's the end of our instruction. So for round 3, we need to repeat this pattern of 1 single crochet stitch in the first stitch, 1 increase in the next stitch, and we'll continue repeating that pattern. So 1 single crochet stitch increase, 1 single crochet stitch increase. We'll keep repeating that 8 times, which will take us all the way around and give us 24 stitches total. So we'll place that first single crochet stitch and then put our marker in where that stitch is, because it's the first one of our round. And then make the second part of that parentheses. So we'll increase. And that's 1 time of that parentheses pattern. So we need to repeat that another 7 times, 1 single crochet stitch increase. And that will take us all the way around to the end of round 3. So 1 single crochet stitch, increase. Alright, so that's round 3 done for me. I'm ready to move on to round 4. We're going to start by putting 1 single crochet stitch in the first stitch of our round. And then remember to mark that stitch. And then we need to put 1 increase in the next stitch. And then we have a new parentheses pattern that we need to repeat. So this one's telling us to put 1 single crochet stitch, 1 single crochet stitch, increase, and we need to do that 7 times, which will take us to the last stitch of our round. And if you look at our instructions here, you can see we're just going to put 1 single crochet stitch in that stitch there. So let's go ahead and make that first parentheses pattern together. 1 single crochet stitch, a second single crochet stitch, and then an increase, and that's 1 repetition, so we need to do that another 6 times for a total of 7 until we get to the last stitch of the round. Alright, so there is that last repetition of that parentheses pattern, and you can see I've got 1 more single crochet stitch from the last round. I'm going to put 1 single crochet stitch inside. And that wraps up round 4. So for round 5, we need to put 1 single crochet stitch in each of the 32 stitches we created from round 4. So that's just 1 single crochet stitch in each stitch all the way around. So don't forget to mark your first stitch. And we'll just keep adding single crochet stitches, 1 in each from the previous round. Alright, that's round 5 done for me. Round 6, we have a new parentheses pattern to repeat. So we need to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 3 stitches of the round. So 1 single crochet stitch in the first that we need to mark. 1 single crochet stitch in the second stitch. And 1 in the third stitch. And then an increase. So 2 single crochet stitches in the same stitch. And there's 1 repetition. We need to repeat that 7 more times for a total of 8 repetitions, which is going to give us 40 stitches at the end of round 6. Alright, so that's round 6 all done. Round 7, just like round 5, we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in each of the 40 stitches that we created from round 6. So again, don't forget to mark that first stitch. And then we're just going to be putting 1 single crochet stitch in each stitch all the way around. Alright, so that's round 7 done for me. Round 8, we're going to begin by putting 1 single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches of the round. So 1 single crochet stitch and then mark. And then our second single crochet stitch. And then we're going to place an increase. And then we have a new parentheses pattern to repeat. We're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 4 stitches and then increase and repeat that 7 times total, which will take us to the last 2 stitches of the round. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 single crochet stitches, increase. Alright, so I just finished that last parentheses pattern for me, and I need to put 1 single crochet stitch in the remaining stitches of this round. And that wraps up round 8. So for rounds 9 through 20, we need to put 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around. So don't forget to move your stitch marker up as you start each new round. So here's me starting round 9. I put my stitch marker back in. And I will see you back here whenever I have finished adding 1 single crochet stitch to every stitch for rounds 9 through 20. And we're ready to place the eyes on the head and body. Alright, so I just finished the last single crochet stitch of round 20, and I'm ready to go ahead and begin inserting the safety eyes. So I'm going to take my crochet hook, I'm going to pull it up long and remove it from that loop. And then the eyes need to be placed on the opposite side of the body, so I'm going to flip the body over. And then if you are giving Percy to a young child or a pet, you may want to sew the eyes, but if not, you can go ahead and grab your safety eyes. Here are mine here. And they're inserted in between the 11th and the 12th round and about 4 stitches apart. So I'm going to go ahead and position the head so that I'm looking at the magic ring. And I'm going to count down to the 11th round from this magic ring. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then the eye is going to go in between the fabric of the 11th and 12th round, just like here. And then the stitches in between, we need to leave about 4 stitches. I'm going to move the eye over a little bit so it is 4 stitches across from the first eye that I placed. Once you have them where you'd like, you can go ahead and snap the backs on the inside. Alright, there are the safety eyes snapped on, and we are ready to continue working around. So I'm going to flip my work back over and put my hook through that loop we drew up long, and then tighten down my working yarn. And we're ready to go ahead and start in on round 21, where we've got a parentheses pattern to repeat, starting with 1 single crochet stitch in the next 4 stitches of our round. Alright, so there are those first 4 single crochet stitches. And then to finish this parentheses pattern, we need to make a decrease. So to decrease, I'm going to go through the next stitch of the round and yarn under and draw up a loop. And then do that exact same thing in the stitch right after. So go through, yarn under, and draw up a loop. So you can see that gives me 3 loops on my hook, 1 from the last single crochet stitch that I made, and then 2, 1 in each of the next 2 stitches. Then to finish off my decrease, I'm going to yarn over and draw through all 3 of those loops on my hook. And that takes 2 of the stitches from the previous round and puts them together into 1 stitch for the next round, decreasing the amount of stitches we're going to have at the end of the round. So we're going to repeat that sequence of 4 single crochet stitches followed by a decrease until we are all the way around round 21. Alright, so that's round 21 done. Round 22, we've got another parentheses pattern to repeat, but this time we're only going to put 3 single crochet stitches before we decrease. So there's that first repetition. We're going to make that same pattern 7 more times until we are all the way to the end of this round. Alright, that wraps up round 22. Round 23, we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches of the round. And then decrease. And then repeat that pattern of 2 single crochet stitches, decrease, all the way around. Alright, that's round 23 done. Round 24, we're going to start by putting 1 single crochet stitch in the next stitch of the round. And then decreasing. And then we're going to repeat that sequence all the way around. Alright, Alright, so before we make our last round, which is round 25, let's go ahead and stuff the inside of the head and body. We'll pull this last stitch up long and remove our hook. And then add some stuffing to the inside through the opening here at the bottom. Alright, I went ahead and stuffed the inside of the body, and I'm ready to make my last round, which is round 25. So I'm going to put my hook back through that loop we drew up long and tighten it down. And then for round 25, we're just going to decrease in every stitch all the way around. Alright, so I just made my last decrease and I'm ready to fasten off. So I'm going to take the stitch marker out and then I'm going to make a slip stitch in the stitch the marker was just in. So to make our slip stitch, we're going to take our crochet hook and go through our next stitch, the one that the marker was just in, yarn over, and draw our working yarn through that stitch, and then draw the loop we just created through the only other loop left on our hook. So now that we've slip stitched, we're ready to fasten off, and we're going to do that by cutting a medium length tail with our yarn. So we'll cut our working yarn 6 to 8 inches in length, and then with the loop on our hook, we're going to pull until the end we've cut passes through that slip stitch on the body. And then we're going to tighten that slip stitch down. Then I'm going to add just a little more stuffing to the inside of the body here. And then we're ready to close off this round. And we're going to do that by taking the tail that we've just cut, this one here, and we're going to sew through each of the front loops from those decreases we've made. So when we crochet, we go underneath both sides of the stitch, the legs of the V. When we sew this round closed, we need to only grab the front loop, which is the loop closest to the surface of our work, the front here. So let's go ahead and thread our tail through the eye of our yarn needle. And then we're going to sew through each front loop of these decreases all the way around. Alright, once you've sewn through all 8 of those front loops, we can pull the tail we've been sewing with, which cinches that last round closed. And then to secure that last round, we need to tie a surface knot. So we're going to loop the yarn over the surface of our work, so into some of the fabric of our work, and then up through that loop on the surface of our work. And then when we pull our tail, that loop's going to wrap itself around and tie a knot. And then to weave in this tail, we're going to sew it into some of the fabric of the body, and then out through a place, it doesn't really matter where. So you can see I've woven the tail in. Now I can unthread my yarn needle, and by pulling that tail tightly and cutting close to the fabric of the work, I weave the tail in. I can discard what I didn't end up weaving in. And that is the head and body complete. Alright, next up we need to make the snout, and we're making it again in white and starting with another magic ring. Alright, now that I have my magic ring formed, I'm ready for round 1, which is to put 6 single crochet stitches inside. Once you have all 6 of your single crochet stitches in your magic ring, you can pull the tail to close round 1. Round 2, we need to increase in each of the 6 stitches we made in round 1. Alright, that's round 2 all wrapped up. Round 3, we're going to begin by putting 1 single crochet stitch in the next 3 stitches of the round. So there's my first single crochet stitch. There are those first 3 single crochet stitches that I need to increase. And we're going to repeat that repetition pattern another 2 times. So 1 single crochet stitch, 2 single crochet stitches, 3, and increase. Alright, there's round 3 done. And round 4, which is the last round of the snout, we just need to put 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around. Alright, there's my last single crochet stitch. I'm ready to fasten off. And I'll do that by slip stitching to the next stitch. And then I need to cut a long tail with my working yarn that I'm going to use to sew. So reserve yourself about 12 inches and then snip. And then just like we did with the head and body, we're going to pull on that loop until our tail passes through our slip stitch. And then tighten down. I'm also going to give the magic ring tail on the inside of the snout here a trim. I'm not going to cut it all the way off, just short, so it can hide out inside the snout. Alright, so now that we have the snout crocheted, we're going to go ahead and embroider on the nose detail, which is going to be a stitch or 2 run along the top of the snout here, and then a stitch or 2 run along the base of the snout, sort of making a T shape. So I'm going to go ahead and take my embroidery floss. I'm going to pass it from the back to the front here through the space between rounds 2 and 3. And I'm going to leave a bit of a tail on the inside of the snout. I'm going to tie the end of this embroidery floss to the tail when I'm done sewing to secure it. Then I'm going to run a stitch along the top, kind of in between these 2 rounds, for about 3 stitches or so, and then sew on the inside of the snout. I'm going to pull that tight so it runs in the spaces between those stitches. And then I'm going to sew that same stitch a few more times. Alright, so with this last stitch I'm going to sew down, and then I'm going to come up through the center of the magic ring here. So I'm sewing down through the last corner of the nose. And then I'm going to sew a couple of straight stitches up and hide where I go in underneath where the top of the nose is. And just like with the top of the nose, I'm going to sew a couple more stitches just to kind of bolden. Alright, so that is the nose. We can go ahead and secure the nose by tying it to the tail that we left behind. I also like to double knot this just to be extra secure on the nose. Then I can trim the ends of the embroidery floss short. And they're also going to hide out on the inside of the snout. So there you can see I have the snout sewn on. And we can go ahead and attach it to Percy now. And when we're sewing the snout on, we need to be really careful not to accidentally rotate it. We want the nose to stay fairly centered. So you can use straight pins and pin the snout in place by just pushing them into the fabric of the snout, which will help it not rotate on us. And then we can take the tail from the snout, thread it through the eye of our tapestry needle, and we'll sew it on by just grabbing some of the fabric from the body and some of the fabric from that last round single crochet stitches. And we're just going to sew through each, attaching each one on. Alright, so I have the nose sewn on and I'm ready to go ahead and fasten off. So I need to tie a knot. So I'm going to loop my yarn over the surface of my work and tie another surface knot, just like we did when we finished the bottom of the body here. And I'm going to weave this tail in to the inside of the body. Then once I've got that tail woven in, I can trim, discard any excess. And that is the nose attached to the body. Alright, so next up we need to make the arms. I need to make 2 of these, so I'll walk you through how to make the first, and then you'll need to come back and make a second, and then we can get them attached to the body. So we're going to begin with this white colored yarn and by forming another magic ring. Alright, so I have my magic ring formed, and I'm ready for round 1, where I'm going to put 6 single crochet stitches inside of this magic ring. Alright, there's those 6 single crochet stitches. I'll pull the tail to finish round 1. And then rounds 2 through 5, we just need to put 1 single crochet stitch in each stitch all the way around. So I'll see you back here for round 5 when I'm done and I'm ready to fasten off. Alright, so I just finished the last single crochet stitch in round 5 and I'm ready to fasten off. I'll take my stitch marker out and I'm going to slip stitch in the stitch it was just in. And then I need to cut a tail to sew with. 6 inches or so ought to do the trick. Then I'm going to pull the slip knot until that tail passes through, and then tighten down. I'm also going to cut the magic ring tail so it's flush with the opening at the top of the arm, and discard anything I didn't end up needing. And that is one of the arms done. We need to make a second and then we can get them attached. Alright, so here I have both of the arms crocheted and I'm ready to go ahead and get them attached. So I'm going to start by threading the tail from one of the arms through the eye of my tapestry needle. And when we sew the arms on, we're going to be sewing through both layers of fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and flatten the arm so that the tail that I'm sewing with is kind of coming off to the right hand side. And then I'm going to be sewing the arms to the body on either side and in between rounds 14 and 26. So let's count down to find round 14. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And I'm going to go ahead and attach the arm here on the side of the body. So I'm going to grab some of the stitches of round 14 and then sew up through both layers of the arm. And I'll just continue grabbing stitches from round 14 and sewing through until I've sewn the arm all the way across, which closes the arm at the top and attaches it to the body. So there you can see the arm is attached. And we need to tie another surface knot and weave our tail in. So there is the first arm attached. We need to repeat with the other arm on the other side. Alright, so you can see I have both arms attached to the body and I'm ready to move on to the legs. So the legs are made with that same white color, and just like with the arms, I'll show you how to make the first, and you need to come back and make a second, and then we can get them attached. And we're going to begin by putting 5 single crochet stitches inside of a magic ring. So let's get that magic ring formed. And then putting those 5 single crochet stitches inside for round 1. Alright, there are those 5 single crochet stitches. Round 2, we're going to increase in each stitch. Alright, there's round 2 done, and then round 3, which is the last round of the leg. We just need to put 1 single crochet stitch in each. Alright, there's that last single crochet stitch of round 3. I'll fasten off by slip stitching to the next stitch. And then just like with the arms, we need to cut a tail to sew with. And then pull that last slip stitch until the tail passes through and tighten down. And I'm also going to trim the magic ring short, but not all the way off. And that is one of the legs done, so let's go ahead and make a second and then get them attached. Alright, so I have both of my legs completed, and we're going to go ahead and thread the tail from one of them through our tapestry needle to get started. Alright, so let's go ahead and get the legs attached here. They're at the bottom of the body, and they're going to be kind of flattened just like the arms. So I'm going to position mine so that it's in line with the eye. And then to sew it on, I'm going to grab some of the fabric of the body and then both layers of the leg. And just continue just like I did with the arms until I'm sewn all the way across. You can see that it has the leg attached to the body. We need to secure it in place by tying another surface knot. And then weaving that tail in. And that is the first leg attached, so we need to repeat with the second leg on the other side. Alright, so I have both of the legs attached and I'm ready to move on to the ears. So the ears are made with that same white color, and we're going to begin with another magic ring. And remember, with the ears, we need to make the first one together and you'll need to come back and complete the second one. Alright, so now that we have that magic ring formed, we're ready for round one. We're going to put 6 single crochet stitches inside of the magic ring. Once you have all 6 single crochet stitches inside, you can pull the tail, which sets us up for round 2, where we're going to increase in each stitch. Alright, that's round 2 done. Round 3, we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around. Alright, that's round 3 done, and for round 4, which is our last round, we've got a parentheses pattern to repeat. We'll put 1 single crochet stitch in that first stitch of the round, then a decrease, and we're going to repeat that sequence of 1 single crochet stitch, decrease, another 3 times. Alright, that wraps up round 4. Then we'll need to fasten off by slip stitching, and again leaving a long tail to sew with. I'm also going to trim that magic ring tail so it's flush with the opening at the ear. Then we also need to prep this ear for sewing, so we're going to flatten it with our stitch, with our tail coming out of sort of the corner of the right hand side. Thread the tail through the eye of our tapestry needle, and then the ears are going to be folded so they have this sort of indent or rounded shape to them. So we're going to kind of fold the right and left hand sides of these ears together and reinforce the ear into the shape by sewing through some of the opposite side. And we'll sew a second stitch to kind of help hold that shape. Alright, so there's one of the ears crocheted and sewed. We need to make the second and then we can get them attached. Alright, so I have both of my ears crocheted and I'm ready to get them attached to the body. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the body, and they're between rounds 5 and 7 and are about 7 single crochet stitches apart. So I'm going to count over to round 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the ear is going to be attached onto the top and side of the head, and we'll attach them by sewing through some of the fabric of the head and then some of the fabric at the bottom of the ear. I'm just going to keep sewing until I've sewn through all of the fabric at the bottom of the ear. Which gets the ear pretty firmly attached to the top and side of the head. Then we'll fasten off by tying another surface knot and weaving the tail into the body. and then trimming anything that we didn't weave in. Alright, so there is one of the ears attached. We need to repeat with the other ear on the other side. Alright, I have both ears attached, and we are ready to start in on the hat. And the hat begins with some white yarn, and again with another magic ring. Alright, I've got my magic ring formed, and I'm ready for round 1, where I'm going to put 6 single crochet stitches inside of this magic ring. Alright, once you've got all 6 stitches, you can pull the tail, and we're ready for round 2, where we're going to increase in each stitch all the way around. Alright, that's round 2 done. Before I move on to round 3, I'm gonna cut the magic ring tail. Just trim it so it stays out of my way. Alright, with that tail trimmed, I'm ready for round 3, where we've got another parentheses pattern to repeat. 1 single crochet stitch in the next stitch of the round, followed by an increase. And we'll repeat that sequence another 5 times for a total of 6 repetitions. Alright, that's round 3 done. So rounds 4 and 5, we're just going to put 1 single crochet stitch in each stitch all the way around. So I'll see you back here whenever I have finished round 5. Alright, so I just finished round 5, and I'm ready for round 6 here. I'm going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the first stitch of the round, and then a decrease. And I'll repeat that pattern another 5 times, so 1 single crochet stitch and then a decrease. Alright, that's round 6 done. Round 7, I'm going to repeat that same pattern again, 1 single crochet stitch and then decrease, but I'm only going to repeat that 4 times total. So 1 single crochet stitch, decrease, and then here on the last decrease, I need to do something special because we're switching to the red color of the hat. So I'm going to make my decrease like normal, but rather than pulling through all 3 of these stitches in white, I need to pull through them in red. So I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut a tail with this white yarn. And I'm going to pull through these 3 loops on my hook with this red yarn, which is the color that we're switching to. So I'm just going to pinch some of this red yarn around my hook, or onto my hook, and then pull that through those 3 loops left to finish that decrease. Then I need to tighten down both the decrease that I made. So I'm going to pull this white tail pretty tight, and then I'm going to put the red tail from fastening on with that white tail together behind, and then begin tensioning my red yarn. So we need to work in these tails for the first few stitches that we're making here for round 8. And round 8, we're going to be working in the back loop only of the stitches for this round. So to work in the back loop only, we've got a lot of things happening here. I'm going to start by taking my stitch marker out. And then to work in the back loop only, when we've been sewing, when we sewed the bottom of the body together, we sewed through the front loop. Now we're going to be crocheting in just the back loop. So I'm going to turn my work so you can see the top of my stitch here, the little V shape. When we work in the back loop, we're going to push our hook between the top of that stitch and only get the loop closest to the inside of our work. So I'm going to go ahead and push my hook through that back loop. And then I also need to lay my tails from fastening on over my hook as well, so the red and the white tail. And then I can make my single crochet stitch as normal. So I'll yarn under and draw through the back loop and around those tails, and then yarn over. Then I'm also going to pull that red tail pretty tightly and then loosen up my stitch a little bit here. We also need to mark our first stitch, even though it's pretty obvious since it's in red. So there's that first stitch marked. And we're going to continue working in those back loops. And I'm going to take those tails that I made a part of that last stitch, I'm going to twist them together. I'm going to stick them straight inside of the puff ball here at the top of the hat. Alright, so we are good to continue working in those back loops. So again, grabbing just the back loop of the next stitch, making a single crochet stitch inside. Alright, I've worked in the back loops all the way around for round 8. And we're done with the back loops. We're back in the regular part of our stitch for round 9. And we've got a parentheses pattern to repeat. Starting with one single crochet stitch in the first stitch of the round. And then one increase. And we're going to repeat that sequence 3 more times for a total of 4. So one single crochet stitch, increase, Alright, that's round 9 done. Round 10, we've got a new parentheses pattern to repeat. We're going to put one single crochet stitch in the next 3 stitches of the round. And then an increase. And we'll repeat that 2 more times for a total of 3 repetitions. Alright, that's round 10 done. Round 11, we're going to make one single crochet stitch in the next 4 stitches of the round. So there's those first 4 single crochet stitches and then an increase. And we're going to repeat that 2 more times for a total of 3. Alright, that's round 11 done. I'm ready for round 12, where I'm going to put one single crochet stitch in the next 5 stitches of the round. Those first 5 single crochet stitches, and then an increase. And then, just like the last couple of rounds, we're going to repeat that pattern 2 more times. Alright, that's round 12 done. Round 13, we'll put one single crochet stitch in the next 6 stitches. Alright, there are those 6 single crochet stitches and then an increase. And we'll repeat that another 2 times. Alright, that's round 13 done. Round 14, we're going to put one single crochet stitch in the next 7 stitches. So there are those 7 single crochet stitches, then an increase. And we'll repeat that another 2 times. Alright, that's round 14 done. Round 15, we're going to just put one single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around. Alright, that's round 15 done. Round 16, we've got another parentheses pattern to repeat. We're going to put one single crochet stitch in the next 8 stitches of our round. and then an increase. And we're going to repeat that pattern another 2 times. Alright, that's round 16 done. Round 17, we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 9 stitches of the round. And then an increase. And we'll repeat that 2 more times. Alright, that's round 17 done. Round 18, we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around. Alright, that's round 18 done. For round 19, I'm going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 10 stitches of the round. Then I'm going to increase. And I'll repeat that pattern another 2 times. Alright, that's round 19 done. Round 20, we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 8 stitches of our round. So there are those 8 single crochet stitches and then an increase. And then we're going to repeat that pattern 3 more times for a total of 4 repetitions. Alright, that's round 20 done. For round 21, we're going to start by putting 1 single crochet stitch in the next 10 stitches of our round. So there are those first 10 single crochet stitches. I'm going to chain 6 stitches next. So to make a chain stitch, I'll take my hook and I'm going to yarn over and draw a nice loop up through the only loop on my hook, which makes 1 chain. Do that again. There's my second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. So now that I have those 6 chains, I'm going to skip over the next 6 stitches in my round. So I'm going to count those stitches 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then I'm going to put a single crochet stitch in that 7th stitch. And that's the first of the 6 that I need to make. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So this right here is going to be one of the gaps that Percy's ears goes through. We're going to repeat that for the second gap. So we need to chain another 6 stitches. Then we'll skip another 6. So skipping 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then put our single crochet stitch in that 7th, which is the first of 12, which should take us to the end of this round. So 1, 2, 3. Alright, then we're ready for round 22. Again, starting by putting 1 single crochet stitch in those first 10 stitches of the round. Alright, so there are those 10 single crochet stitches. And then we're going to be putting 6 single crochet stitches inside of each of those chains. So 1 in each chain stitch from the last round. So the chain stitch looks a lot like the top of our regular single crochet stitch. You can see it makes that little V shape. So we need to grab both sides. So just like we would with a regular single crochet stitch. Push from front to back underneath both legs of that little V. Then yarn under and draw up a loop. And yarn over and draw through both. We're just going to keep single crocheting in that chain. 1 single crochet stitch in each chain. Alright, so there's those 6 single crochet stitches in each 1 stitch of that chain. Then we've got 6 single crochet stitches in between that first gap and the second gap. Then we're going to work in each of these chains that we made over the second gap, just like we did the first one. Alright, there are those 6 single crochet stitches and then 1 single crochet stitch in each of the 12 remaining stitches of this round. Alright, that wraps up round 22. We're ready for round 23. We're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 4 stitches of the round. Follow that with an increase. And we'll repeat that pattern 7 more times for a total of 8 repetitions. Alright, that's round 23 done. I'm ready for round 24, where I'm going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 7 stitches of the round. So there are those 7 single crochet stitches and then an increase. And I'll repeat that another 5 times for a total of 6 repetitions. Alright, that's round 24 done. I'm ready for round 25, where I'm going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 4 stitches of the round. Then an increase. And then I've got a new parentheses pattern to repeat, where I'm going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 8 stitches. So there are those 8 single crochet stitches and then an increase. I'm going to repeat that pattern 4 more times for a total of 5 repetitions. Alright, so there's that last repetition of that parentheses pattern. And to finish this round off, I'm going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the remaining 4 stitches of the round, with a color change happening on this last one. So I'm going to make most of that last single crochet stitch and then trim the red yarn. And then I'm going to pull through those last 2 loops on my hook with this white color. So we're making the brim of the hat here. And then I'm going to lay the white tail that I just made and the red tail together in the back of my work and begin tensioning my white yarn. So then I'm ready to make round 26, and we're in the back loops. So I'm going to start by putting 1 single crochet stitch in this first back loop, and I need to work my tails in for it as well. So I'll lay the tails over and then make my single crochet stitch. Then I need to mark that stitch as well. And then still in the back loops, we're going to be making 1 half double crochet in each. So we need to work our tails in as we go. So we'll start by yarning over. So we need to take our yarn and put it over our crochet hook. So sort of like a wrap from back to front. So there's the yarn over. And then we're going to go through the back loop of the next single crochet stitch and lay our tails over as well. Then we need to yarn under, draw through the back loop and around those tails. So we've got 3 loops here on our hook. Then to finish our half double crochet, we're going to yarn over and draw through all 3 loops left on our crochet hook. So we'll do that same thing again. We'll wrap our yarn around our hook, go through our next back loop, lay our tails over. Then we're going to yarn under, draw through around those tails and the back loop. And then yarn over and draw through all 3 loops on our hook. And we're just going to keep adding half double crochet stitches to each of these back loops until we get to our last stitch of the round, where we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch. So I worked those tails in for several stitches now. Here you can see on the back side I've got the tails. I'm going to give them a trim and discard anything I didn't work in. And I'm just going to continue adding 1 half double crochet stitch to each back loop until I get to the last stitch of the round. Alright, so I'm in my last single crochet stitch here of the round, and I'm going to make 1 single crochet stitch in this back loop. And that wraps up the hat, so we're ready to fasten off. And we're going to do that by slip stitching to that first single crochet stitch we made of this round. And then we need to cut a tail to weave in. You don't need very much, 6 inches ought to do the trick on this. Then pull and tighten that slip knot down or slip stitch down. And then we're going to weave this tail in by threading it through the eye of our tapestry needle. And then we're going to take it along the inside of the hat. So I'm going to sew it up through that single crochet stitch underneath it. And then I'm going to run it along the insides of the half double crochet stitches on the brim here. And then trim close to the fabric of the inside of the hat and discard anything I didn't end up weaving in. And that is the hat done. So the hat is going to be able to go over Percy's ears here. So you can just push them through those gaps on the top of the hat. You can see that makes it so you can still see his ears while he's wearing this very festive hat. Alright, so that's the hat done. Let's move on to the next part of our pattern. Alright, so next up we need to make the light bulbs for the light strands. And they're all made the same way, so I'm going to walk you through how to make 1 of the red ones. And then you need to make 1 more red, 3 yellow, and then 3 of that khaki light green color. So with red, I'm going to go ahead and begin by forming a magic ring. And now that I have that magic ring formed, I'm ready for round 1. I'm going to put 4 single crochet stitches inside of that magic ring. Alright, there are those 4 single crochet stitches. I'll pull the tail, which sets me up for round 2. I'm going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the first stitch of the round. And then an increase in the next stitch. And then repeat that a second time. So 1 single crochet stitch, and then an increase. I'm also going to give my magic ring tail one tug and a trim. Then we're ready for our last round, which is round 3. We're just going to put 1 single crochet stitch in each stitch of the round. Alright, so there's the crochet part of the bulb done. We'll take our stitch marker out, make a slip stitch in the next stitch, and then cut a small tail to sew with, and pull that tail through our last slip stitch and tighten. And then for each of the bulbs, we also need to sew them closed at the top. So we'll thread that tail we just cut through the eye of our tapestry needle. And just like we did on the bottom of the body, we're going to sew up through each of those front loops left behind from those 6 single crochet stitches. Once you've sewn through all 6, you can tighten to close off that last round. And we also need to tie a surface knot and weave that tail inside of the light. Alright, so that is one of the lights done. So again, we need to make another red, 3 yellow, and 3 of that khaki green color. Alright, so I have all of my lights made, and I'm ready to go ahead and get them onto their strands. So I'm going to set them aside, and we need to begin by chaining. So let's review how to get a chain started from a slip knot, and how to make our first couple of chain stitches. Alright, so let's review how to tie a slip knot and how to form a chain stitch. So we're going to take our yarn, and I'm using white for this demonstration, so just double check you're using the correct color from your pattern. And we're going to reserve ourselves a little bit of a tail, just like we do with our magic ring. So I'm going to take maybe 5 or 6 inches or so of my working yarn here, make myself a little tail. And then we're going to take that tail and we're going to wrap it behind our working yarn. So we're sort of making like a lowercase letter B. So once we've got that wrapped around, we formed this loop here. We're going to kind of sandwich the working yarn with the tail. So bring it back around and kind of cross it over that loop. Sort of like a pretzel twist. Then when we've done that, what we need to do is draw this twist that we've just done, that strand, through this loop without pulling the tail all the way through, because that would just tie a knot. So I take my hook hand, which is my right hand, and I grab what I've laid over that loop and pull it. And then with my other hand, I grab my working yarn and then pull the loop through. And the reason I form my slip knots this way is because they tighten when you pull on the tail, but not when you pull on the working yarn. It won't tighten while you're trying to add stitches to it. So once you've got that slip knot formed, you're going to take your hook and slip it inside of the slip knot, and then pull the tail to tighten it into a loop down onto your hook. Then you're ready to begin tensioning by laying the working yarn over your yarn index finger. So for me, that's my left index finger. And then wrapping the rest of your fingers around our working yarn. And then I like to hold on to the slip knot itself with my middle and thumb on my yarn hand. And then we're ready to form a chain. So to chain, we'll take our hook and we're going to yarn over, meaning we're going to put the yarn over our hook, and then draw the working yarn through the slip knot we tied, and then pull up to form a nice tall loop. So that's our first chain. To continue chaining, we're going to just keep yarning over and drawing a nice tall loop through each time. One final thing though, the loop on your hook, as I'm sure I may have mentioned in the video before, that doesn't count as a stitch. This is sort of like a stitch in progress. So right now I have 2 chain stitches formed. I'll yarn over and draw another stitch through. That'll be 3, 4. And as you add chain stitches, I tend to move my middle and my thumb up closer to my hook to help me sort of tension my yarn a little easier. So as I chain, I just keep shifting my hand down the stitches that I've just created. Alright, so that's how you tie a slip knot and chain. Alright, so now that we know how to form a slip knot, we're ready to go ahead and start in on strand 1. And we're going to begin by chaining 8 stitches. Alright, so I have all of my chains made. Then we're going to begin by hooking through one of our yellow lights to start with. So to do that, we're going to take our crochet hook and we're going to go through where we cinched those lights closed. And we're just going to push our hook into some of the fabric of our work and then up through where that round is all cinched together. So there I have that cinched. And I'm going to make a slip stitch to add this light onto the strand. So I'll get a yarn over and draw that green through the top of the light, and then draw that loop through the only other loop left on my hook. And I'm going to repeat that process. I'm going to chain 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then I'm going to grab the next color, which is red for this strand. And again, I'm going to just push through where I sewed the top of the light closed. Let's just push my hook straight through that light. And then make a slip stitch. So yarn over, draw through where you pushed through that light, and then draw that loop through. Alright, then I'm going to chain another 8. And join that next color, which is that green or khaki color. So I'll just push through once again. And slip stitch the light onto the strand. So we're going to repeat that a second time. So chaining 8 and then the sequence of colors being yellow, red, and then green. So I will see you once I have the other 3 lights attached and we're ready to finish up this first strand. Alright, so I have the second set done here. So I've got 6 lights total here on my first strand, and I'm ready to finish it off. I'm going to do that by chaining another 8 stitches. And then I'm ready to fasten off. So I need a long tail. I'm going to use this to sew with. So give yourself about 12 inches or so. And then I'm going to pull that last chain through. So just pull and then tighten it down. And you can see that makes our first garland of lights. And we're going to attach it by wrapping it around Percy's body here, kind of underneath his arms. And it's going to go together here in the back. And we're going to use that long tail to sew it onto Percy's body. So I'll go ahead and thread that long tail through the eye of my needle. And to sew it on, I'm just going to overlap where those chains are, and then sew down through some of the chain and into the body, and then up through another spot on the chain. And I'm just going to continue working my way around, tacking each chain down. Alright, so I'm almost all the way around, and I'm going to sew up through the chain that I used to start, so that slip knot that we tied. And then I'm going to tie a surface knot here. So I'm going to loop it over the thread that I'm sewing with over the 2 chains where they come together, and then sew into those chains and up through that loop to tie a knot. And then I need to weave in both of these tails, the one from where we made our slip knot and the one that we just used to sew. And I'm going to sew them down through the chain and into Percy's body. Do the same thing with this one from the slip knot. And then give them both a trim. And that's the first strand of lights attached. So we're ready to work on that second strand. And it's made pretty much the same way as the first strand. Again, using this dark green yarn, starting with a slip knot. This time we're going to chain 21 stitches. Alright, so there are those 21 stitches chained. Then I'm going to insert the first light, which is the yellow one, just like we did on that first strand. We'll slip stitch it too. Then we're going to chain 16. There's those 16 stitches. I'll add the second strand. Alright, so there's that second strand added on, and then I'm going to chain 21 stitches. Once I've got those 21 stitches chained, I'm going to cut another long tail to sew with. Then pull that last chain through and tighten it down into a knot. And then I'm ready to attach this second strand of lights on. So I've got Percy here, and the second strand's going to kind of loop over his arms so he looks pretty tangled and has those 2 lights here close to the front of the body. So we're going to attach this strand of lights on the same way that we attached the first strand. All right, so I'm all the way around with that second strand of lights. I'm gonna go ahead and fasten off again the same way I did with the first strand. I'm gonna tie a surface knot through some of the fabric of the chain. And then I'm gonna send these tails straight down and into the body and just out through another spot. And repeat on the slip knot tail that we used to start our chain. Alright, so with both of those strands attached and the hat back on Percy's head, this tutorial is a wrap.